So, first of all, pleasure to meet you. I'm so excited to meet you and have the opportunity to speak to you.
Lovely meeting you as well.
If you would, tell me about your friend that you have with you here.
Well, this is Mr. H, because he was given to me 32 years ago by a man called Gary Horn, who went blind at 21 in the US Marines, decided to be a magician, was told that was impossible. Children don't know he's blind, and at the end he'll say, something may happen to you, don't give up, there's always a way forward. And he thought he was giving me a stuffed chimpanzee. I made him hold the tail. He said, take him with you, and you know I'm with you in spirit. And he does skydiving, and he's taught himself to paint. He's done a portrait of Mr. H that he's never seen.
Oh wow, that's incredible. And just one of the big questions, what does it feel like to get that incredible hug from a chimpanzee?
Well, there's chimpanzees and chimpanzees, and some of them have this great presence, and you really feel that you're looking into the eyes of a being that you can have a sort of instinctive communion with. Others are just bratty. I mean, there's some nice chimps and some pretty unpleasant ones.
I think I've seen some of the incidences of unpleasant ones. You've done so much groundbreaking and barrier-breaking work throughout your entire life. What do you look at as the most important?
Well, two. One, helping science move away from that very reductionist attitude towards animals, which maintained that only humans have personalities, minds, and emotions. And thanks to the work with the chimps, that barrier was broken, and now we know there's intelligence, sentience in octopuses and things like that. And so that's one, to help people understand really the nature of animals. And secondly, working with children, starting our Roots and Shoots program. It's now in 68 countries around the world.
What is the most important? What's the most important? What's the big lesson that you learned working with chimps?
Well, that we are part of the animal kingdom. We're not separated from it. We are the fifth grade ape, in fact. Biologically, we're the fifth grade ape. It's also taught me, okay, so we're different, clearly. What's the biggest difference? And for me, the development of a spoken language. Because for the first time, we've been able to teach children about things that aren't present. We can bring people with different knowledge together to try and solve a problem. We can make plans for the distant future. And I suspect that was triggered, at least partly, by the fact we developed this way of communicating with words.
Why the visit to South Florida? What makes South Florida an important place for you to come and to speak to people?
Because I think there's a number of people here who haven't realized the importance of protecting the environment, of protecting ecosystems. People who believe that maybe there's climate change, but it's nothing to do with us. And as this isn't true, then it's important to talk to people, especially children, so that they begin to understand what's really going on.
We're just a couple miles from the Everglades, which is just filled with so much wildlife and so many important things. What is your concern or your thought when you think about the Everglades and Florida wildlife?
Well, I have had the luck of going in a canoe on the Everglades, which was wonderful. So the problems that I've been told about, first of all, the sinking level, which is having quite an effect on some creatures, the people who've released pythons there, and plans for developing part of the Everglades are being told about. And the Everglades are a national treasure. They're just beautiful. And there is this, that we need to maintain this corridor, protect the rare Florida panther, things like that.
Here in South Florida, we have such a large Hispanic community. What's the importance of reaching out to the Hispanic community here in South Florida?
Well, it's important to reach out to the Hispanic community. It's important to reach out to certain areas of the white community. It's important to reach out in some places to the black community. You know, it's important to reach everyone. And because this is a sort of gateway to Latin America here, we're developing our youth program. It's growing quite fast through the different countries in Latin America.
You know, your passion, while it's been just a constant throughout your life, it's also kind of taken a bit of a shift. Talk about that.
Well, it really started when I learned that chimpanzees and forests were disappearing in Africa. And I went to have a look at, by then there were different field study sites, and I learned about the chimps' problems, but I also learned that in so many places, people living in and around chimp habitat were cripplingly poor. They lacked good health and education. They were degrading the land as their populations grew. They were moving into chimp habitat. And when I flew over the tiny Gombe National Park, it was part of a great forest. And when I looked down in the late 80s, it was a tiny island of forest surrounded by bare hills, trees gone, too many people for the land to support, too poor to buy food from elsewhere. And I realized if we don't help these people find ways of living without destroying the environment, cutting down trees to make space to grow more food or to make money from charcoal or timber, if we don't help them find other ways of living, then we can't save chimps, forests, or anything else. And that's the same all around the world. We must alleviate poverty so that people can live without destroying the atmosphere,
you know,
the environment.
I think a lot of what you work on as well is putting a face and a voice to climate change and kind of the dangers.
Yes, I've seen it. I mean, I've stood with Inuit elders up in Greenland and seen ice melting, and they told me when we were young, even in summer this didn't melt, and this was late winter. And, you know, I know now the ice caps just sunk, huge icebergs break off, polar bears will probably become extinct because of the ice melting. I've seen people who've had to leave their island homes because of sea level rise caused by the warming of the ocean and the melting of the ice. And, you know, all around the world weather patterns are changing. I've seen the aftermath of the terrible hurricanes that are more frequent, the flooding that is worse and happens more often, the droughts which are longer and devastating. And this, you know, this actual proof of the accumulation of CO2, methane gas and others up in the atmosphere that's forming a sort of blanket around the globe and trapping the heat of the sun. That's what's happening. And, you know, because I've seen it with my own eyes, it's easier for me to talk about it.
Do you just kind of feel like the world's on fire right now?
The fire, yeah. The fires are terrible because of the droughts.
And part of your message is inspiration and hope. What do you mean by that?
Well, my job is to inspire people, to give them hope, because without hope, people fall into apathy and do nothing. And if we all do nothing, we're doomed. But I mean, if you want to do something but you feel it's not going to make a difference, why bother to do it? So I suggest people find something in your community you care about. Like here, it might be writing letters to stop the pollution of the water that's you know, causing the loss of seagrass and therefore the loss of marine life. Or maybe you want to force boats to go slower so there are less hits on the manatees, or maybe you want to go and volunteer where the wounded manatee are, or maybe you want to fight for the Everglades. Whatever it is, get together with a group and do something locally, and then you realize you can make a difference.
I guess it's taking one step at a time and one fight at a time to make a big difference later on, perhaps.
Well, I mean, there's enough of us. It's the only advantage of the number of people on the planet. There's enough people to tackle all the different problems together. And then knowing it's happening around the world, that's what gives people hope.
What is your message to people today as you travel around the country?
The main message is every single one of us makes an impact on the planet every single day. And we get to choose what sort of impact we make, unless we're so poor that we just have to do anything to keep alive. That's why alleviating poverty is important. But to the rest of us, we can choose what to buy. We can ask, did it harm the environment when it was made? Was it cruel to animals, like the factory farms? Is it cheap because of unfair wages? And then don't buy it. And that's causing companies to change because of consumer pressure, as more and more people want to buy only products that are being produced ethically.
So a lot of this is just awareness on our parts.
Yes, awareness. That's why our youth program is so important. That's why I travel around talking to people. And that's where the media is so important. And if the media will talk more about the amazing people and projects that are actually working to protect the environment and animals, then we need to know the doom and gloom, but we need to know the good stories too. We need to know what's possible. And then people will say, gosh, they've done that. They cleared up their river. We can clean up ours. Let's get to it.
That's where that whole idea of hope comes in.
Yes.
Also, your birthday's coming up very soon.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
What is your birthday wish? What are you hoping for?
Well, everybody's asking me what my birthday wish is. And I don't know. I mean, the Roots and Shoots program is really changing young lives, because I get letters from all over the world saying, you know, I promise I'll do my bit. So I could wish for Roots and Shoots to be in every school.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to speak about?
No, I think we covered pretty well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
I think
so
we
much.
did.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Nice talking to you.